Hello, my name is Sister Desiree. I am a Felician sister, and today I just wanted to share a little bit about discernment, especially for those who are discerning a religious vocation. I am the vocation director for my community, and lately I've been getting a lot of questions from women asking, where do they even begin? It can be a little bit daunting to start discerning a religious vocation, especially now because you can't really visit communities or spend time with sisters in their convents or at Mass because we're trying to, stay home and stay safe. So where to begin just in general, and these are just my personal thoughts, my personal experiences. So I'm not like a discernment expert. I just thought I'd share a little bit that maybe could help somebody. My first thoughts are to begin with some questions. So ask yourself things like, what are my deepest desires? What is it I'm really longing for? And what about religious life seems like it might be a good fit for my desires and for me as a person? And two, having a spiritual director would really help. And even right now, though we're social distancing, I know some spiritual directors may be willing to speak with people by phone, maybe FaceTime or Zoom, because people need spiritual direction, especially at a time like this. So you don't have to have a spiritual director. It's just helpful. They sort of provide assistance in helping people process. So they're not necessarily problem solvers or going to help tell you what to do, but a spiritual director is there to listen and help you maybe think about what's going on around you and inside of you, and where God might be inviting you to based on that. In addition to the questions and perhaps a spiritual director or maybe a friend or a mentor that you feel like could help you process what's going on inside of you, I would say to be in touch with some communities. And of course, there are a lot of us out there, so that is sometimes what makes it a little bit scary for people. Don't feel like you have to be in touch with every community you've ever heard of, but maybe start with one that's just been on your mind or heart right now. Reach out to them. It doesn't have to be the vocation director. It could be any of the sisters. So if you already know one of the sisters, or let's say you read about a community in a magazine or you saw them on a website, just do the contact us thing and send them an email or make a phone call and see where it goes. So there are, I don't feel like I have to give, I don't feel like giving a history of religious life will help right now. I can't really do that anyway. I'm not a historian. But there are lots of different types of communities out there. So for example, I'm a Felician sister. We are a Franciscan community, but there are about 200 or more Franciscan communities. So even if you were like, oh, well, I feel like I'm called to Franciscan spirituality, I feel like that fits me, then how do you go about finding which of those 200 fits you, So again, going back to start with the community that you've heard of or that you read about or you saw online. Let's say you get to talking with a community and you feel like, you know what, I don't really think this is a good fit. Or let's say, after our stay-at-home orders, you've been able to visit with a community and spend some time with them, and you still feel like you're called to religious life, but maybe that community is not a good fit. That doesn't mean you're not called to be religious. Even, let's say you even go so far as to enter that community, and after a year, 2 years, you're in initial formation, you become a novice, and you feel like this is not the place for me, I'm not growing here, or I'm not finding joy or peace. Peace is a really good, important thing to pay attention to, by the way, when you're discerning. So let's say you start your journey with a community that you thought was the one, and then they're not the one, so you leave or you end that discernment process with a community. That doesn't mean you're not called to religious life. If you're still feeling like maybe I am called, maybe that just wasn't the one, I think about it like you're dating. When you date a guy and you're looking to get married one day and you're thinking maybe he's the one, but then it just doesn't seem like there's peace or there's joy, you don't break up with him and say, okay, I'm not meant for married life, right? You just say, he just wasn't the one. Maybe there's somebody else. So it's kind of like that with communities. You say, I thought this was the one. I thought this is where I was called. Still feeling called, but maybe I just need to look elsewhere. So when it comes to looking elsewhere, that's the thing that kind of like gets people. So how to begin looking elsewhere, or how to even begin? How do you know what kind of spirituality you feel called to? So maybe even just start there before you start contacting communities. You could look into what Franciscan spirituality is about, Benedictine spirituality, Dominican spirituality. Everybody has something different to offer. Even, like I said, within those spiritualities, there are lots of different types of communities. So even if you feel like, oh, if, you know, St. Dominic appeals to me and his way of living the gospel is what I feel drawn to, again, there are a lot of communities to choose from. So when you start looking into those communities, maybe you want to pay attention to what they do. Maybe things like ministry are important to you, and you feel like, you know what, I don't know that I want to do what I've been doing forever. You know, maybe I'm a teacher and I love it, but what if I want to change my mind? But let's say this community, everybody teaches, and your ministry doesn't change outside of that, then maybe that's not the community you look into. Maybe you find one where people have maybe 2 or 3 different options when it comes to ministry. Maybe prayer and prayer styles are important to you. So think about what kind of personal prayer you like, what kind of communal prayer you like. So some communities maybe pray together twice a day, maybe some pray together once a day, maybe some pray together 5 times a day. So start looking into things like that, how often they pray together, what kind of prayers they say together. Maybe you like faith sharing, maybe you like the divine office, maybe you like both, you know, so find communities and ask those questions when you get in touch with the community or the vocation director. Ask what kinds of prayer they have together, how often do they pray together. Maybe Mass, how often do you go? Do you go every day? Do you go on Sunday? Do you go as a community? Do sisters go on their own? Things like that, you know. So try to figure out first what's important to you, and then find that in a community. Because while we are one congregation, you know, each community, we're made up of individuals, and so we want to be able to have every sister thrive, and that means you're finding someplace that you feel you fit, not necessarily someplace that you have to make fit. I like the analogy of, because I like shopping, so I inherited that from my parents. I blame them completely, but I love them. So shoes is one, both my parents like shoes. So I like thinking of trying to make things fit as like a pair of shoes you found that you really, really like, but they're like a half size too small, and you're trying really, really hard to make them fit, and you just know it doesn't fit. Whereas looking for a community that you know just fits. It's like you try it on, it looks great, and it feels great, and it's just like, yeah, this was meant for me. So if you're feeling called to religious life and the first 5 communities you meet, they just don't feel like a good fit, keep looking. There are tons of us out there, so don't feel discouraged. And thinking about what else might be helpful, just to mention, give yourself time. You don't have to rush, you don't have to hurry, just give yourself space and time. So make sure that if you do visit several communities, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3, maybe 15, maybe you're the kind of person who likes to do lots of research, give yourself some space and time between those visits. Like, get to know each community for who they are as they are without rushing to get to know the next. And ask yourself questions again after getting to know communities, what seemed to be a good fit and maybe what seemed not to be a good fit. What you like, what you don't like, but also ask yourself why. Why doesn't it feel like a good fit? Why does it feel like it is a good fit? Why don't you like this, or why don't you like that? Just so that you can maybe get to know yourself better in the process as well.